Welcome to the CROC Podcast.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here is your host, Dr. E.
Howdy, CROC Nation. Dr. Tommy Eanelli here with you with another CROC Podcast. Along with me, my best bud, my spiritual warrior, my co-host and co-board member, Mr. Angel Santana. Have faith, let it begin. And I also want to make an announcement. As of just today, the Employee of the Month at Garnet Medical Center. Angel, what a great honor. I just wanted to be the first on the CROC Podcast to congratulate you on this amazing distinction.
I'd like to thank Dr. Eanelli for this great award. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, anytime, and I think everybody can agree with this, anytime you're recognized by your peers for a job well done, it makes you feel good, a little warm and fuzzy, but no, I feel good. I really love what I do. You know that. And I love what we do here together. And it's like the little cherry on the top for me coming in on 10 years. So I'm happy about it. How are you, my friend? I missed you.
Yeah, everything's good, but you're not going to get out that easy without getting embarrassed a little bit. So I just want everyone to know. So most of the people that listen to the CROC Podcast are local and kind of know us or have a connection to us. So they know kind of what we look like. They know how we operate. They know where we work. Many of the people who listen, our CROC Nation, actually have come to our medical center. So they know how absolutely dense and populated our medical center is. Even though it's a community hospital, there's many hundreds and hundreds of people that work in that structure to give wonderful care to our patients in the Hudson Valley. And to get that distinction, Angel, of being the Employee of the Month is really remarkable. And it's not like, when you go into a fast food restaurant and you see, the Employees of the Month are Joe Blow and Susie Q and all these things, because there's only 6 of them. That's not the case. This is a big deal. So again, congratulations, well deserved.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. And welcome back to all the CROC Nation. Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer is back, and Dr. E's taking over.
I love it. Well, I had to embarrass you just a little bit as my younger brother. So I'm really excited, Angel. I came up, again, how do we come up with the ideas for these podcasts? 99% of the time, I get inspired by a story that happens in the clinic, and that's actually true of this coming podcast. Every once in a while, we'll get a suggestion or a recommendation. Nick's recommendation about financial advocacy and how to get funds and how to apply for grants to help you with your financial journey during your survivorship was, I thought, a wonderful 2 weeks podcast. And thank Nick for that. And
Absolutely.
And I came up with this idea after I saw a patient last week. And this patient, we're going to call her Janine, brought up a very, very important topic. And it's so important that we're going to spend 3 weeks on this. So the topic that we're going to be talking about is going to be the title is Navigating the Uncertainties of Medicine, How to Embrace the Unknown in Your Survivorship Journey. So Janine is a young woman, a young mom, and she has thyroid cancer. Janine is not her real name, but we're going to call her Janine to protect her identity. And Janine came to me with a very curable, if not cured, thyroid cancer. And Janine came in for her yearly checkup, and I examined her and everything was perfect. And I checked her blood and everything was perfect. And then I got an ultrasound of her neck just to make sure that the thyroid bed was clear and the lymph nodes in the neck were fine. And there was some uncertainty. Again, here's going to be the theme of our 3 podcasts, the uncertainty in the reading of the ultrasound. So the ultrasound found some lymph nodes, but they were unsure of the significance of these lymph nodes. So that's uncertainty. Then I said to Janine, okay, Janine, not a problem. Let's get a CAT scan. So we got a CAT scan of her neck and got a CAT scan of her chest. And this is a true story, Angel. No kidding around. The way that the radiologist read this report was there are no masses and no abnormalities, but this patient is high risk for neoplasm or a high risk for cancer. So the radiologist who read that might as well have just said to Janine, because this is the way she read it, the patient, me, is at high risk for death. How that radiologist came up with that sentence completely baffled me. And that was what inspired me to look into the subject of uncertainty. So there's going to be 3 podcasts. This is the first. Today, we're going to be just talking about the general concept of uncertainty in medicine. And then we're going to be talking about a case like this, where there's overreading done, where the radiologist or the pathologist looks at something and looks at it incorrectly, or looks at it in a way to protect themselves from being sued at the expense of the mental health of our survivor thrivers. And also just in our general day-to-day testing that we do, Angel, you being the recipient of many tests, I call it the inevitability of bubbles and bumps, meaning that if you have any scans done and CAT scans, they're going to find cysts, they're going to feel lumps, they're going to feel bumps, they're going to find bubbles, and no one's going to really know how to interpret them. Again, uncertainty. And then we're going to end with how we have to help our patients get through the terrain of uncertainty, because our survivor thrivers are looking for answers, and we don't have these answers because there's become engulfed and engaged in these circular conversations with our survivor thrivers, which frustrates them and frustrates us. And it's really due to the fact that we don't have any clue as physicians, as leaders, on how to embrace the uncertainty in medicine. And that's going to be the theme of these next 3 podcasts. Your thoughts, Angel?
I find it fascinating, though, that, and I know that I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but I'm still stuck on the whole report and how that comes out. You know what I mean? Because I'm assuming that everybody has a patient portal these days, and I don't know if that patient, that's the first thing I'm thinking about is, did the patient read this?
That's exactly what happened. And I got the panic call.
Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. No, and that's how it all started. And actually, thank you for the question, because it actually is the good segue to what I was going to say next. And that was the conversation that I had with her after she panicked. So what I did, without even doing this research, because now I'm an expert, of course, on uncertainty in medicine. I wanted to say, that's a joke, everybody. I am not an expert, but I did want to give credit to who the experts are. So I got my research from a bunch of sources, but the one that I really love, and I think that would be the most readable for everybody, if anybody has an interest, is from the Harvard Medical Journal from the summer of 2024 by a author by the name of Amos Estrie. And that's the credit that I want to give, because truly I'm not an expert, but it is a fascinating subject. So anyway, without even having done this research, I try to explain to Janine my interpretation of uncertainty. And I was just telling her that, hey, Janine, nothing to worry about. I see this every day. I think this radiologist was lazy, because they didn't look back at your other scans to compare. And had they compared, they would have found that there's no problem. Number 2 is they were stupid, because they really worded this so poorly that it would make anybody freak out. And number 3 is they were afraid. They were very cowardly, because they really didn't care about you or your test. They just cared that they weren't going to get sued. And I tried in my best attempt to explain uncertainty to Janine, that process. The problem with Janine is that she's an English teacher, and English teachers are sticklers for words. And she just couldn't get it in her head that words always mean something if you're writing a paper for 5th grade English, but they don't mean anything when you're reading a medical chart, which is chock full of misspellings, of grammatical errors, of inconsistencies, and of untruths, and of uncertainty. So I tried to explain that to Janine, and I got nowhere, but I did get to the podcast, which is, I'm really excited. So I did realize 2 things after this conversation with Janine. Number 1 is that we oftentimes get ourselves in these circular conversations, and we're going to use a podcast on how to prevent them or how to get out of them. Number 2 I realized that even as a seasoned physician of over 30 plus years, with a high level of schooling and training, that our entire field of medicine is based on uncertainty. And we have never been trained specifically on how to deal with uncertainty and how to manage uncertainty with our survivor thrivers. So again, the subject continues to get fascinating. So then I dug a little deeper and I wanted to look at what types of uncertainty are in the field of medicine. And there's many, but we're only going to deal with three. Number one, there's the uncertainty of diagnoses. So say a patient, and you're that guy, Angel, you're the guy who goes into the OR. I'm sorry, go to the emergency room with shortness of breath, of fatigue or whatever, an upset stomach. And you go in there looking for answers, and they draw your blood and do some x-rays. And then when everything's done, they come to you and say, Angel, I know you're still short of breath. I know you're still tired. I know you still have an upset stomach. We can't find anything, so go home. So you have none of your questions answered. No one knows what's going on. Everyone is uncertain. You go home. So uncertainty in diagnoses. Number two, the uncertainty of interpreting testing. So testing is arbitrary. All of our yardsticks are arbitrary. We speak in ranges, like days to weeks, weeks to months, months to years. We talk about PSA levels for our prostate cancer patients. If you're less than 4, you are low risk for cancer. But can you have cancer if you're less than 4? Yes. Can you not have cancer if you have a PSA of 99? Yes. We're very uncertain in interpreting our testing. We're also very uncertain in our prognoses. We don't know who will do well. We don't know why they'll do well. And we don't know the difference between the people who will do and who won't do. Take, for instance, a patient with prostate cancer. I'll use that same example. There's a cure rate of just say 85%. So who's going to be in the 85% and who's going to be in the 15%? I don't know. So our patients come in, they want to be in the 85%. They want me to tell them they're going to be in the 85%. And I really can't do that. So they feel frustrated. I feel frustrated because I'm still in denial about the fact that my entire field is steeped in this sea of uncertainty. And I think the number one reason, Angel, in my opinion, why uncertainty in medicine has been ignored and not studied. Actually, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to ask you to see if you know. I'm going to give you a chance of winning another prize tonight. That'll be 2 in one day.
Oh, man.
What do you think is the number one reason? I'm playing Family Feud.
Okay. Go ahead.
What's your guess?
Wait, ask me. You got me all nervous. You asked me the question again.
Okay. What's the number one reason why uncertainty in medicine has been ignored and not studied?
Uncertainty in medicine has been ignored because of not being able to address the patient accurately?
Sort of. I was going to say, in my opinion, it's a little different. I think it's because as the physician, as the doctor, patients expect us to have the answers. We are oftentimes we have that ability, and the skill to save a life. So all of those shows you guys watch on TV, my wife being one of them, watches all those shows about emergency rooms and how patients come in with like axes in their head, or they're spurting blood from their carotid arteries or whatever they're doing. And of course, there's this skilled doctor, and we have them in our own medical center who are able to save these lives. So patients look at us as more than human, and they have expectations of us as being more than human. And to be honest with you, we kind of perpetuate that illusion because of our abilities, because of, my ability to eradicate cancer, Dr. Toro's ability, the trauma orthopedist to patch Humpty Dumpty back together again. Our abilities give us that sort of presence. And number two is, and hopefully this is not me, is sometimes we perpetuate this by our attitudes. Sometimes we are a little standoffish, we're a little arrogant, we're a little holier than thou, we're the smartest people in the room. And that's unfortunate, because truly patients come to us with the trust and the expectation that we will cure them. And this is one of the reasons why I think that we have kind of pushed the subject under the rug, and we haven't really studied it because we may not want to know the answers. We may not want to actually admit to the fact that there is such uncertainty in what we do. And we fear that if we express this uncertainty, our patients will feel that we're ignorant or we're not knowledgeable. And even we're fearful that our colleagues will feel that about us. So we mask it, we cover it up. But Angel, there is good news. There are steps to make this, to address this. And the first step is to communicate clearly. So we have to become comfortable with the I don't know, as long as it's followed by, but I will do the best of my ability to find out. We also have to know that there are benefits rather than harm that comes from admitting to this uncertainty. Number one, Angel, it humanizes us. It makes us human to the patient and to the survivor. And this will lead to an opportunity for a deeper engagement with our patients and an ability to develop a relationship with our patients. And it also gives us an opportunity to learn both from our side as well as from the patient's side and from the survivor side. And it sets the table for what we've done a podcast, trio on when we talked about shared decision making, where in the old days, the physicians would tell a patient what to do. Now the physicians involve the patient and their support group and their support team to help make the decision together. And that comes from us admitting to this uncertainty and then bringing everyone together to help make a joint decision. So in addition to communicating clearly, we also have to create a structure and we have to create room in our practice to actually accommodate this uncertainty and the interactions with our patients about this uncertainty. So a patient like Janine, I'm going to use her as an example, comes in and I see her for follow-up. I tell her everything's great. Let's do some testing. I look at the testing. Everything looks good. However, there's a read which I don't agree with. And she asks me the question that can't be answered because it's uncertain. Am I at high risk for cancer? So then what I do is I tell her, hold the phone. I'm not going to answer that question right now. We're uncertain as to what's going on. However, let me get to the bottom of this. Then we can enlist or engage a colleague. We could do our research. We do our due diligence. We do our probing. And I did that. I went to several radiologists in the group. I said, Victor, this is wrong. I don't believe this. Tell me your thoughts. He said, this is ridiculous. We found old CAT scans that Janine had. They were all unchanged. The radiologist was too lazy to find them and to look at them, to take the extra 20 seconds. And within 30 minutes, I had an addendum and an apology from the radiology group to Janine, telling her that indeed she was not at high risk for dying from her cancer and that her scans were absolutely fine. So what we have to do, Angel, is we have to do what's called RAPS, R-A-P-S. We have to recognize that there is uncertainty in our medical world. We have to acknowledge this uncertainty with our patients, with our survivor thrivers. We have to partner with our colleagues as well as with our survivor thrivers, and we have to seek support in order to try to peel the layers of that onion of uncertainty. And basically, at the end of the day, Angel, we need to rethink our position in our survivor thrivers' lives. We are their physicians. We are their care team. We are their leaders of their medical team, but we are not what we were taught to be. We are not leaders of a dictatorship. We are not leaders of a fascist, army or delegation. We are leaders not of a one-man team, but of an entire team, which includes all of us as colleagues in cancer, all of our patients and their support groups together, all of their support people. And it includes doing the work, putting in the time in order to try to admit to uncertainty, but try to bring down the degree of uncertainty to the greatest amount that we can. And then we have this same duty to be strong, and we have to stop pretending we know something that we don't, and we have to lead in a strong way, admitting our humanity and the uncertainty of our craft. That's what makes us strong, not just lying to our patients or covering up with our patients or trying not to look stupid, but to actually, that makes you weak. What makes you strong is to admit and be humble and then advocate for your patient. The way we need to lead, Angel, is to walk the path of uncertainty with courage and with humility. And I use the analogy in closing, like the great explorers that we read about in civics or in geography or what in history when we were in grade school. These were explorers and adventurers who were leading dozens, if not hundreds, of men and women on the pursuits of discovery. And they didn't say, hey, I know that America is right over this crest. They thought they were going to just fall off, off the end of the earth. They didn't know the earth was round. And when they circumnavigated the globe, or when they first went into space, or when they first, went into the Mariana Trench, or whatever our great adventurers, of our time in our history, they didn't know what they were going to find. They were very uncertain, but they were strong and they were courageous and they were honest and they were transparent. And that led to the discovery of the new worlds, of the discovery of space, the discovery of the deep seas, and also of the triumph of man's ingenuity and man's knowledge. And I think that as leaders, as physicians, this subject of uncertainty is so fascinating. I can't wait to get to podcast 2 and podcast 3 to further discuss. Angel, Santana, your thoughts?
I have a two-part question today rather than a final thought. The first question is, speaking about Janine, we said Janine, when I know that as a patient myself, we get our results, right? We get the results of diagnostic imaging or any type of results. Was the obviously there was an error in the result. However, do they ever put those type of comments, high risk? Because I mean,
I have never. I mean, I have seen radiologists, allocate risks on certain reads. So, say that you have a prostate MRI. They have a thing called PIRADS, and if you have a breast mammogram, they have a thing called BIRADS. And what they do is they take the information and they basically have a structure of okay, if you have certain findings, you're a PIRADS 1, which means that you're very low risk for cancer, or you're a PIRADS 2 or a PIRADS 3 or a PIRADS 4. And the higher the PIRADS or the BIRADS, the higher the chances that the abnormality on the scan is a malignancy.
Gotcha.
However, I have never seen anyone take a normal study with someone who had well-differentiated thyroid cancer, who is not going to die of their thyroid cancer, and insinuate that they're a high risk of having a malignancy. I've never seen that. And in my opinion, I appreciate the opportunity that physician gave me, to delve into the subject to help our CROC Nation, deal with this problem of uncertainty. But I also feel very distanced from them for their lack of, professionalism and expertise, because a patient did suffer, a survivor, thriver did suffer.
Right. And now, and it's a great segue to my second question is, you talked about having risks of having a results or research indicating that you could be at high risk for cancers. Can you kind of give me an explanation as to what that really means? Because here's what I'm trying to understand. If I'm a person that doesn't have cancer in my family, but wants to know, medically speaking, am I a high risk for cancer? Is there type of studies for that?
Well, that would be a different podcast for a different day. That would be about, that would be about surveillance and testing and, doing mammograms, doing rectal exams, doing,
Okay.
fecal blood, PSAs, all those kind of things. But
So what happened with
yeah,
Janine was that
yeah,
you already had a backup. You had a history with her to the
correct. She
point
already
where
she already had her cancer,
gotcha.
and it was taken care of. It was just the uncertainty in medicine.
Good. I'm
So,
glad I
but
could.
your point, let's just stay on that for a second,
Yeah.
because that's now a different subject. That's called the uncertainty of our health. We don't know. We are basically ticking time bombs. Something's going to happen to us. Me sooner than you. I'm 65. You're what, 22? No,
I
you're
wish
yeah, I
47.
know exactly. So my point is that we know something's going to get us. We just don't know what that is. That might be a good podcast for another day. And how the lay people, the people who listen to the CROC podcast who may not be survivor thrivers, how we can help them perhaps what do they say, nip it in the bud,
Yeah.
and be able to be proactive.
Or get
But
ahead of it.
that's a subject for another day.
Beautiful. So you know what? For the Croc Nation out there, here's another great segue. We always ask for your feedback. So if that's something you want to hear about, give us some questions. We're looking forward to hearing from them so that Dr. E can respond to them and get your answers and a future podcast for that. So I'll let you have the last word, my friend. Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Oh, my pleasure. And again, much congratulations to you, Angel, on behalf of the board of directors and of our entire CROC Nation. And the way I end it, I always end on our CROC prayer. And I want to take a minute to really just address this issue of uncertainty. So you've been diagnosed with your cancer. You've had your treatment for your cancer. You're doing fantastic. You're feeling back to normal or close to normal, or new normal. And you go through the testing and you're very nervous. And I don't care if you have papillary thyroid cancer or glioblastoma, which is the worst cancer you can get. Either way, it doesn't matter. You're nervous, you're freaked out, and you're getting this ultrasound, and then your doctor, buzzes you and says, I'm not really satisfied with this. It didn't give me a good look. Let me get this CAT scan. And hey, doc, is everything right? Is everything good? Yeah, everything's good, no problem. And then you get the CAT scan and you get these kind of readings, and they ask you the simple question, am I okay? And the answer is, we don't know. We need to do some more digging. The key is to let you guys know that we need, as your doctors, as your leaders, we need to be comfortable with not knowing. As long as that leads to the second part, is that we could be uncomfortable. We can be comfortable without knowing what's going on now, but we're going to do the best we can to dig for you so that uncertainty becomes minimized, if not resolved. So here is my prayer to end today's podcast. As always, everyone here on the CROC Nation, everyone here on the CROC Podcast, everyone here at Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer, starting from the board members and everyone else who supports us, we want to end this by wishing you all a long, healthy, happy, and cancer-free life. God bless you. God be with you. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the CROC Podcast. Here's what happened the second we came off the air. A little behind the scenes to let you know what happens when we stop recording. Enjoy it. We'll see you next week.
I think that was a good one. I like that. That was a good episode.
Did it end?
Yeah. Well, I'm letting it run. They want us to hear a little bit of what happens after the show goes off the air. So I figured I'll let this run for a few seconds. But I thought it was a good one. I think we really should consider that episode, precautions or precautionary measures.
Yeah, I'm happy to do. See, I said 90% of the time I'm inspired by a patient, but sometimes I get a recommendation.
Absolutely. And I think that'd be great.
Hey, CROC Nation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the podcast to your friends. Visit our website, crocvip.com. We would love to hear your feedback.